Welcome to Relationship Talk, the podcast where we have real conversations about love, well-being, dating, and relationships. In today's episode, I had a candid conversation about why we settle in love and how to stop with Dr. Becky Whetstone. He is a marriage and family therapist and life coach, specializing in marriage crisis counseling. Based in Arkansas, she developed Managed Separation, an intervention guiding separated couples with purpose and timelines. Inspired by her own marriage crisis, she created tools to help couples navigate turmoil. You can find out more about Becky's fantastic work in the show notes. During this conversation, Becky shares why so many women put all their eggs in the man basket and how having a plan B isn't about pessimism, it's about power and self-worth. She also touches on that push-pull dating dynamic we see all too often and how to stop rewarding wobbly, inconsistent behavior. Becky also explores the damage that comes from keeping secrets in relationships, especially the ones in your own head, and how saying it straight can build real connection. And this big one, falling for potential. Becky breaks down why people rarely change, maybe 5%, and how trauma can cloud our judgment. And so much more. You are about to get the whole RLT, aka Relationship Talk, so you're going to want to watch the entire episode. I hope that you will find this conversation as captivating as I did. And remember to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell. I'm Teresha Young, your international wellness and relationship coach. Enjoy, take notes, and get ready to apply all key messages you take away today. Hello, Dr. Becky Whetstone. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. I'm so happy to be here talking to you, Teresa. This is great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you because you are so passionate. I don't know whether I've met anybody as passionate about their work from what I know of you and how you've expressed yourself. So I know that this is going to be a really enlightening, a very engaging conversation. So I really, really can't wait to get right into it. So let's not keep the audience waiting for too long. Please share with us what led you to being a marriage and family therapist and life coach.
Well, first of all, like a lot of people, I didn't even know the profession of marriage and family therapy existed. I've been to therapists, since my 20s. I didn't become a therapist till I was in my 40s, but I never paid attention to if my therapist was a social worker or a psychologist or a marriage and family therapist or whatever. I should have, because I think that's important information when you're looking for a therapist, now that I know the difference between them all. But I was actually going to see a woman who had a master's in social work, and she had a PhD in marriage and family therapy. And she knew I was obsessed with relationships. And at the time I was writing for the newspaper in San Antonio, and I was writing about relationships. I was a non-qualified relationship guru. I had no professional credentials, but I have been obsessed with relationships since I was a teenager. So I was an amateur, kind of guru. And so she told me in the therapy session, have you thought about going to marriage and family therapy school? Because you would be so good at that. And I actually looked into it and sent off to the university in San Antonio for where I lived for the information. And it kind of sat in my drawer for a few years, and I would, open that drawer and close it. And I started having dreams about it. This is so strange. I had dreams saying, about going back to school, and it just nagged at me. And every time the reason I kept putting the catalog back in the drawer was because I saw the classes they expected me to take.
Okay.
And I got intimidated, you know? And I was like, you know, I don't even know what they're talking about. Some of the words they were using were really scary. And then I had to take a bunch of statistics and stuff. And I'm not, you know, math is not my favorite subject. So, but finally, I just told myself at least go check, at least take a course or two and see how it goes. So that's how I became one. And it is the absolute bullseye, right on profession for me. So I'm forever grateful to that woman that she brought this profession to my attention, because we're the only counseling profession that is trained to see every member of the family, from children to adults to couples to entire families. We're specialists. We're the only ones that do that. And we treat families as systems, sort of like a thermostat system, all these components, you know, in a machine. And so we're trained to understand how they work. And if just one person in the system gets wobbly, it's going to affect everybody else in the family system. And I find that fascinating.
That is absolutely fascinating. And I'm curious because you mentioned the age of 19 there, and that you had this obsession about relationships. What caused that obsession about relationships, especially at that teenage time?
You know, how do you explain, you know, like I've known, I've interviewed people before as my job as a journalist about, like, say they were into medicine or something.
Mm,
And they would tell me that when they were like a little boy, they would go in the
yeah.
pharmacy and they were turned on by the smells in the pharmacy of all the medicines and the gauze and, you know, and so that environment, for those kind of people, you know, they are very attracted to or drawn to. But my dad was encouraged us all to read the newspaper when I was a little kid, and so of course I loved the cartoons, but the only other things that I really loved was reading the advice columns, you know, by the psychologists and the Dear Abby and all
Hmm.
these famous women who were known to give advice, and I just devoured them. And then my mom would have ladies magazines, and they would always have an advice column in them. And
Yes.
I'm like, I'd grab those magazines and have to read them and try to understand them. And so I think that was my first inkling. And so I kind of thought, well, what I wanted to do, because I also love writing. And I said, well, I'm going to write about relationships. That's what my job's going to be. So when I went to college, I majored in journalism, but my professors talked me out kind of pursuing journalism, because they told me that you have to start at the bottom, work in a tiny town, which I didn't want to do, get paid nothing, and then you have to cover murders and house fires and things. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to write about relationships.
Yeah.
They told me that
That's
you
where my
can't
heart
just
is.
they told
Yes.
me that you can't just show up at a newspaper and write about relationships. You have to earn your way up to that. So I didn't do it at that time. So you know,
Yeah.
but I later found out, you know, because later on when I got the job at the newspaper many years later, I started as a journalist writing about relationships. So don't believe, everybody out there, don't believe those people that tell you you can't start out that way, you can't do that, because, you know, you can figure it out. If there's a
Yes.
will, there's a way. And I was born to be a feature writer for the newspaper, and that's,
Yeah.
you know, and they let me come straight into the feature department and start that. So, and it was hugely, I mean, outrageously successful in
Yeah.
my town. The town of 2 million people, I was writing about relationships. And so
Mm,
people started having me on their radio shows and their TV shows that were local in San Antonio, and became
mm.
pretty well known for doing that. But everybody griped that I didn't have credentials. So the obvious next step for me
Yeah.
was to go to school,
And get the credentials.
get the
Well,
credential, and shut everybody up. Tired of the griping.
exactly. And you can shout PhD as much as you wanted to. Now,
Nobody,
say.
ever says a thing about my credentials
No.
anymore.
You have been in this relationship world for some time now, so you're going to see some changes, I would say, from where you started to where you are now. What are some of the differences that you are seeing in modern dating and relationships in comparison to when you first started?
Geez, when I first started, I think our culture was a little more still on the cusp of coming out of patriarchy, where the traditional model where the man's the boss and the woman stays home. And I live, if y'all can't tell, in the southern part of the United States, and the southern part of the United States is quite a bit behind other parts of the country as far as the culture goes. And so, when I first started out, I was still seeing people in some of those the traditional relationships, and now I'm seeing more a demand women's demand for intimacy in relationships, for quality of relationship, expecting the man to step up to the plate and be an equal participant and more of a partnership, interdependent marriage model, which I think is a great idea. But I still see too many women who are let's put it say putting all their eggs in the man basket, so to speak, which is something I would like to see change, because as women, they might have a very successful husband, but if that marriage doesn't work out, they haven't prepared themselves to land on their feet if it
Mm.
doesn't work out. So one of my mantras for women is, I don't care if you want to be a housewife. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a great, honorable thing to do, but have a plan B. If 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 the woman or man that you're with is supporting you, you've got to have a plan B so you can at least have a middle class kind of existence if you leave. Because women that can't support themselves, they end up staying in relationships that are really unhealthy for them. They feel trapped. So, I'm saying to all the women out there, please don't put yourself in that position. So,
Yes. So I'm thinking more about that egg in man basket that you referred to there.
yes.
What could be, I mean, apart from maybe being staying at home, a stay at home mom, a stay at home wife, whatever that looks like, what could be causing people to put all of their eggs in one basket? What are they lacking, so to speak, to actually put everything into that basket?
I did that back in like 1985 when I married my kid's dad. And I think at that time, my self-esteem was on the floor.
Mm.
I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think like I could have gone to graduate school back then. My parents made me go to college. That's the only reason I went. I mean, it would have been a terrible shame in my family to not get a college degree. So I did get that. And then I got married and put all my eggs in the man basket because I didn't have confidence back then. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I was good enough to be a super successful person in the workplace, and basically I just believed a lot of lies about about myself. And so I decided that I would be a caboose on a man's train engine
Mm.
and let him drag me along, and have this successful life through him. But I
Yes.
I learned soon into it that I longed for an identity of my own. And people would, I'd go to all these events with him. He was very prominent, and we'd go to fancy events, and people would just look at me with glazed over eyes until they'd go, "Oh, you're his wife. Okay." And then then they cared about who I was,
Hey.
but it just pointed out to me that I was not, it was like I wasn't treated as a person when
Mm.
I was his wife. And it wasn't until we got divorced and I was forced to go out into the workplace and support myself
Yes.
that I was, able to get an identity of my own, and then the rest was history. So a lot of this too, I think I even have clients who get divorced and they haven't ever worked in a
Yeah.
serious job, ever, and they're terrified. And so many of them end up doing so well and they surprise themselves,
Mm.
and then in doing that and getting out there and seeing that you can builds the confidence, it builds the self-esteem. You get self-esteem from doing things yourself and being successful at it. And you don't get self-esteem through people doing things for you or providing you a meal ticket.
Yes.
So I think being forced to go out on my own was the beginning of great things for me,
Mm.
where all those doubts kind of went away. And then I became to believe in myself.
Yes. So what I'm hearing there, Becky, is that it's really important for you to have your identity because it can be quite easy for us to lose ourselves when we get into dating, when we get into a relationship, and we can
Sure.
actually lose identity or just put it to one side and start to morph a little bit into the other person. There can be
Yeah.
so many reasons for why we do that. Equally, what I'm saying, hearing is that it's important to stay true to who you are. And even if you don't know who you are, how does one go about finding themselves? What's
The
your
same the same way we learn what foods we like. We
experiment?
taste them.
Yes.
You know, and so I've had parents, come to me and talk to me about their 13 or 14-year-old child, and they're like, we're really mad at Russell because, he took piano and he didn't like piano, and then he just wanted to try the trombone and he didn't like that, and now he wants a guitar, and we just say that's it, we're not getting you a guitar. And I tell them, do you expect a child to know what instrument is the right one for them? How are they going to figure that out? They're going to figure it out by trying all the different ones, until they hit on something that is the right fit for them. And yet we criticize people when they go out and try different professions or different sports or whatever it is, and you're like, you're lost. No, they're discovering themselves, they're tasting life. And so that's what I tell people. And the thing is when you're tasting life and you really enjoy something, that's a pretty good clue that that's something that's authentic to you, right? And if you're doing something in life that you hate, then that's a pretty good clue that you don't need to go in that direction, right? So if you'll just pay attention to how you feel when you're doing things and trying things, you'll get to know yourself. And then by the time you're my age, you know yourself so well that I pretty much know what to veer away from now and what to veer toward.
That's beautiful because that then moves into self-trust. Because when you start to be able to go out there, trust how you feel, trust yourself to experiment and be curious, taste life, whatever that might
Yeah,
look like. That's
yeah,
beautiful because then what you can do is start to spot some of the red flags that can appear
totally.
in dating and relationships. So we know in modern dating, it's a bit of a minefield. In modern dating, it can be a little bit of a minefield. We don't know what we're doing. Is it a go? Is it a no? We have no idea. How can we start to trust what is showing up for us? Because there's a lot of dating red flags out there, a lot of relationship red flags. What are some of the common ones that you deal with when it comes to your clients?
Like some of the typical things I deal with are the guys who show up and are ardent pursuers and act like they're really into you, and then they disappear or pull back and retreat. That's extremely common. And I think that's a huge red flag myself.
Yeah.
And I really think that women don't demand enough from men. I think that too many women sit around in a position of, oh, does he like me? What do I have to do to get him to like me? No, I want women to say to the guys, what are you going to do to get me to like you? You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yes.
I think that women should say, bring your personality and your wagon of wares and let me take a look and see if I'm interested in that. What have you got that I might want and benefit from? So I think women uh, need to get past their kind of weak stance with men and be a non-tolerator of any baloney that a man throws your way. A solid man does not doubt and retreat. That a solid man stays. Like my husband, who I'm married to now, once he decided we clicked, once we were in the click mode, of, oh, I like him, oh, I like her. That was it. We just proceeded. And that's the way it's supposed to be. So,
Mm.
but my stance, in those kind of retreating guys became once I'd been to graduate school and I was single and I was learning so much. And so I set some kind of rules for myself. And one is I will give you one benefit of the doubt if you retreat on me. You can retreat on me once, but if you retreat on me a second time, we're done and I'm and removing your phone from my phone and we're not going to be in touch anymore. So I don't think, the women complain to me so much about push, pull, in, out,
Yes.
the second time he blows you off or isn't out of integrity with you, punch the detonator button. Get him out of there. Get him out of your life. We don't need these kind of men provoke anxiety in women
Yes.
and we don't
Yes.
need them. And I tell you, if we would reject them more often and then they would have to learn to become solid and learn how not to run when they're feeling nervous, because there is such a thing as I'm feeling nervous in the relationship, but I can stay and work through it. Don't
Yes.
have to run for the hills.
Yes. That is all. So I love what you're covering there because it's what we permit, we promote. So if you are, yeah, like that one, yeah, what you permit, you promote. So if you're going to permit the push, pull, then you're promoting the push, pull. You are actually giving the
You're
foundation.
positively conditioning the man like Pavlov's dog, like you're you're rewarding him. Oh, that would be operant conditioning as the rewards and punishment. You're
Mm,
rewarding him for his bad behavior.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that should be like another mantra for everybody is I'm not going to reward your bad behavior. You're not going to get access to me unless I can count on you. And every relationship to be solid has to have that fundamental foundation of I can absolutely 10,000% count on you. So
Mm,
your red flag should really be focused on that. Can I count on you? Have you lied to me? Did you tell me you were not seeing anyone and you were? Like, come on, people, because you're not going to have a solid foundation with someone that's not truthful, that isn't in integrity, that doesn't do what they say they're going to do. And that when you reach out for them, they will be there for you come what may. So those are the things that you absolutely must have. And again, I think women tolerate and enable too much with guys, and we don't realize our power. We have what every man wants. And why do you think that men put up with us anyway? They could be hanging out with their guy friends all day and all night. Why don't they? Well, you know what? Because nobody makes them feel like a woman does. And if you don't believe me, ask them because they'll immediately go, it's so true. It's so
yeah,
true. I can't live without how I feel when I'm just in the female energy.
yes.
I just need it. And it's
Mm.
soothes my soul. And so we have this thing that they want and they need. And so they need to treat that, you know, with
Mm.
respect and kindness and
Yeah.
love, and don't tolerate anything less. Is my message to all women.
Yeah. And what you said there, and it's a really strong message. And I love the fact that when you can say, I'm not going to tolerate this, I'm not going to be an enabler, I'm not going to reward bad behavior, so to speak,
Yes.
I'm not going to reward this behavior. It's really powerful because it puts you back into your power. And it's disempowering to think that you put all of your eggs in one basket and then you ride your own happiness
Yeah.
on somebody else's behavior. And that's so disempowering when that happens. What you said there, Becky, as well, is you can be anxious in a relationship dynamic. It's about communicating it though. You don't have to retreat. So what's your take on, let's say you are the woman on the receiving end and you've noticed that somebody has got this push, pull, push, pull. What's the best way to communicate that observation to that person? Because it's all about safety. Men also want to feel safe in a direct dynamic. Women want to feel safe in a dynamic, most people anyway. So what's the best way to communicate what's happening and how you're feeling?
Well, if I'm the one feeling the anxiety, I think that, I would tell the person, that I'm with, that, when I'm, in too close a proximity for too long,
Mm.
whether it's physical closeness or emotional closeness or whatever, I start to feel overwhelmed. And so just bear with me, because it doesn't mean I don't like you or I don't want to be with you, but I'm just dealing with my anxious feelings. And so just bear with me as I get through it. But know that I'm with you and I'm not going anywhere and I don't want to scare you. So I think reassurance goes
Mm.
a long way, because a lot of men, especially who pull away, don't communicate what's going on with them. And they may know well that they're coming back, but
Yeah.
they don't say it to the woman. And of course, the woman's, feeling anxiety and worry and calling all her friends.
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
just think, openly talking about what's going on with you is a really great thing. And I remind my runners, the people that I work with who run or are avoidant attached, that anxiety never killed anyone, you know.
Mm.
And anxiety is like a mountain peak. It it starts to build. It hits the peak where you're just like, I've got to run. But that's your body can't maintain that peak for very long. So you're coming down the other
Yeah.
side pretty quickly.
Mm.
So if you can just make it through the peak and down the other side. And then the other thing is, the more that you confront that and do that, the shorter the hills will be. And then over time you will have conditioned yourself to not feel anxiety when you're doing that very same thing. So
Mm.
it's facing anxiety is one of the most powerful things people can do for themselves. That's really how to get rid of it.
Yeah. And there can be so much anxiety in this world, especially when it does come to dating and relationships, because a lot of it is about the other person and their experiences and what they're bringing to the dynamic too. And what you shared there about that communication was great. It was open, it was transparent, it was honest. You put
Yeah,
yourself into that vulnerable place to say, I'm
absolutely.
going to be vulnerable here. So, would you say that that is aligned with your saying it straight ethos? Because you are very much about saying it straight. So, does
Oh,
that fall in
yeah.
line with that, or is that something a bit different?
No, one thing that drives me crazy, and I've done a lot of research on this subject, is that one of the biggest causes of divorce and, split ups is keeping secrets, having all these thoughts and feelings and internal conversations within yourself and trying to work it out within yourself, when your partner has no idea that you are in a struggle. And then, a lot of people hold that in and hold that in until they can't stand it anymore. And then, there's going to be some big drama of, I think I want out. I think I got to, I got to break up. And the person, I just talked to somebody today who was telling me, I don't know what happened. Her husband, like, he won't speak to me. He's vanished since November, and he will only come pick up our child and he won't talk about our relationship. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, you know, the I'm not going to tell you what's going on with me and how I feel, when the healthiest thing you can do with your partner is stay in touch with them and tell them what's going on with you and how you feel. And so if you're struggling in your marriage and you're aware of it, or your relationship, as soon as you realize it's serious, have the courage to tell your partner, I'm struggling in this relationship and I'm feeling, uncomfortable in it. Give people the chance to work it out and to, make adjustments. Most of us in relationships aim to please, and we don't want you to be unhappy,
Yeah.
So I have a lot of people that get divorced where their spouse never gave them a chance or a warning signal that they were dying inside. So those secrets are that you're unhappy are that's one of the unhealthiest things you can do in a relationship, is keep that secret.
What could be causing people to keep it secret, though, Becky?
I think they don't want to start something,
Mm,
Teresa, honestly, And I think that they're afraid of the person's reaction.
yeah.
Some people want to be in control of whether they're going to go or not. Some people are truly afraid that if I tell them how unhappy I am, that they'll leave me. So they want to be with the one with their hand on the throttle. And other people are just afraid. And it goes back to that anxiety and fear again. People are so afraid, and
Mm,
fear is not your friend. It's facing things head on and honestly and diplomatically and tenderly. You don't have to, deliver a boxing punch to your partner. It can be said with tenderness and compassion and softness. Like, we need to learn to speak to our partners in a way where they don't feel an attack or under threat.
mm,
So that, like, if you've got bad news to deliver to me, Teresa, if you'll
yeah.
be really soft when you're telling me about it and non-threatening, I'll be able to stay with you and talk to you about it calmly also. It's all in the presentation.
Yeah.
But so many people in our culture don't work on being diplomatic. They don't work on controlling their tone and their body
Mm,
language and stuff.
yeah.
So I think all of this plays a part. I believe you can say anything to anybody
Mm,
with kindness and tenderness.
yeah. Yeah. And I've read your blogs as well, and I can see that. Check out, we'll put the details into the show notes, but they do check out Becky's blogs, because you speak very much about that, about the kindness, and speaking with that compassion and that softness, and how we could have more of that in this world, which can open up that space for connection in a world of interconnectedness. We have all of these ways that we can connect. I mean, you're in Arkansas, I'm here in England. There's so many ways that we can actually connect, let alone there still feels this deep sense of disconnect, even with our closest person that we have in our world. So it's incredible, isn't it?
It is incredible. I tell my clients, like, it's amazing that you can have like two or three kids with somebody, spend every day with them, and yet you just can't tell them what's going on with you and how you feel. That is bizarre to me. It's just bizarre. I'm working with someone right now who's been married 25 years. He's got 2 kids in college. He's miserable in his marriage and is so thinking about leaving, and his wife has no idea. And I've been talking to him for months about he's got to give her a heads up about his unhappy. He's got to give her a chance
Mm,
because, and this, now we're talking about the family system,
yes.
going back to the family system, because if you divorce the mom and didn't give her a chance, it came out of the blue, then your kids are going to be furious with you. You're going to be judged very harshly, and they're going to support the mom and not you. And there's a huge chance for estrangement there. So, in all these things you're doing, you have to consider the well-being of the whole family system and how your children are going to process it. And your children, if you're going to get a divorce, I mean, or break up or whatever, your children are watching about how you handled it, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And you better not mistreat their parent, or be unfair. And it's
Yeah.
unfair, I think, to leave somebody without giving them a warning shot. I think that
Yeah.
is one of the cruelest things people can do, is not say, "Hey, I'm struggling and thinking of leaving. Give the other person a chance to make
Mm,
it right."
absolutely. And this is where people like yourself, like you can actually have a conversation because some people could be sitting here thinking that really resonates with me and I don't know where to start. This is where therapists, this is where counselors, this is where perhaps even a coach can come into play and help you to discover what is going on for you. Because it could absolutely not be sometimes the other person at all. It might not be anything about the other person's behavior. It could be something that's legacy. For many people I know that our attachment styles obviously derive from when we were children. So it could actually be something that stems from the way that you were cared for example, that just needs some
No,
deep work.
all of that stuff. See, it's complicated.
It
It's
is complicated,
complicated.
yeah.
And the other thing is that, and this has been a absolute bombshell realization for me when I started studying trauma dynamics about 15 years ago, is what trauma does to us is it screws up our perception. So I may be perceiving you as thinking all these things about me, or treating me a certain kind of way, and be totally wrong, and be totally wrong, and I'll tell you, there's nothing more frustrating than being misperceived by somebody. And I think we've all experienced that, where
Mm.
they'll go like, "Hey, Teresa, you're this way or you're that way." And you're like, "What? Where did you
What are
get
you?
that?"
Excuse
It's
me.
because and the thing is, if a person has terrible self-esteem and they don't think they're good enough,
Oh, yes.
then the lens in which they're perceiving you is through a not good enough lens. So
Yeah.
say you and I are friends, Teresa, and I feel like I'm not good enough for you, and you're a better person than I am, then I'm gonna be thinking, well, the reason Teresa didn't call me this week is because she found somebody better to hang out with. We perceive it through these crazy lenses that just aren't true. And a lot of
Exactly.
couples are married where they don't think they're good enough for their partner, and this stuff shows up
Yeah.
in the relationship.
Yeah.
So it's just, perception is a big, big thing that a therapist can help you learn how to discern reality
Yeah.
accurately.
And talking about perception, actually, could that be one of the reasons why in the dating world we fall for somebody's potential? Because of
Oh,
how we are perceiving that person or the situation.
well, I think that's magical thinking.
Yeah.
I tell people, think about the mate you're selecting as a house. Don't buy a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house and plan to turn it into a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. Because you know what? The other person gets a say. And most people This is bad news, but most people aren't going to change that much. Most
Mm.
people, the most you can expect them to change is about 5%. So if you are thinking I've had clients tell me, well, I'll go, why did you marry him? They'll be telling me, like, I knew he was like this. I knew he was like that. Well, then why did you marry him? Well, I thought I could just love him enough that he would change. No, that's no, no. People come as is. And and if you marry young, yeah, y'all are gonna change. You won't even be able to predict how much you're gonna change in the relationship. But that's different from trying to get them to change into what you want them to be.
Mm.
You know, like
Yes.
I changed a ton when I was married to my kid's dad. I grew up. He married an emotional child and I grew up. And that is a very common dynamic in marriages, especially with women when we marry a strong man, for example, and it's kind of like a father figure in the beginning, and you really admire his intelligence and his confidence, but then we grow up and we want to be their equal, and we want to be a partner now, and we want to have a seat at the table with them. And whether a lot of marriages make it or not depends on if this man in that situation can allow the woman's growth and change and give her the space to now be on his level, you know?
Yes. Yes. So if we have that perspective, people come as they are at the start, then that
Absolutely.
actually could help us. It might mean, okay, fine, I'm not in a connection with somebody, but at least you can filter out the people who would be potentially wasting your time, the time wasters, the people who aren't really truly in it. Because then you need to know what you want from a person. You know, what does your most compatible, loving person look like for you? Then at least you can say, if they never change, would I still be in love with them right now? If I didn't look for that potential, could I actually just really be happy with who this person is right now, forever?
That's what you have to ask. Here's my other pet peeve, Teresa,
Yeah.
is I think most people don't date enough people in their life. I think that people, uh, I write about this in my blog a lot, that human beings are wired to, by the law of least effort, and they just take the best, kind of closest, quickest thing that's near them and then roll with it. And so most of my friends dated two or three or four people in their life, and then they married one of them. Then they
Yeah.
get a divorce and they marry two different people between marriages and then marry one of those. And I honestly think, how on earth do you think you are going to accurately find somebody who's really compatible for you out of a sample size of less than 10 people?
Mm.
The odds of you finding a great match in that small sample size are so infinitesimal. And that's what I'm dealing with day in and day out, is two good people who
Yes.
are incompatible. They should not have married, but by God, he loved how beautiful she was, or
Mm.
she loved that he wanted a house in the country. But you know what? There were so many other incompatible things, that they brushed under the rug.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I just think that if people would take more time and effort to date a significant sample size so you can
Yes.
see what's out there.
Yes. I love that. I think maybe some people that could be very scary for people because they're going for a date and they're going in for the long one. It's like if I go on a date, I really want this to be maybe the person for me. But that's knowing your boundaries, isn't it? It's knowing the reasons for you dating and duty dating, so to speak. You're going out there, you're doing multiple dates, but it's just knowing that you have boundaries in terms of what you're trying to discover.
Yeah, I tell people dating doesn't mean if I'm dating you, Teresa, it doesn't mean I'm interested in you. I'm trying to find out if I'm interested in you.
Yes.
And so many people, and I learned this when I was dating the last time, is men, I'd go out with a man and he would assume I'm interested in him.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't know yet if I'm interested in you. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to get to know you and see how you might fit into my world and me into yours
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And I just really think that that attitude is the way to go in
Mm.
dating is I don't know. Right now I like the veneer of you, but I need to take this for a trial run. Like if you were going to buy one car in your life and have to drive it through every stage of your life, from teen to 20s, 30s, 40s, and old age, what kind of car would you choose to last you the whole life through? You would not choose a two-seater convertible. You know what I mean? You would want something solid, well made, that is low maintenance, you know? And I wish people would put as much, as much effort into choosing a partner as they would a car,
Yeah.
really. I think people often think about cars and what car they want more than they do the qualities of a spouse.
So take some time. Take some time to understand the qualities of what you are looking for in terms of a spouse and explore. Explore the dating scene. And knowing it's okay to do that. It's okay to go out there and just discover.
Well, this is like the instrument example I
Yes.
used before.
Yeah.
How are you going to know what kind of man or woman is right for you till you go out and taste a bunch of them?
Yeah.
And now in this era, the politics and the things that are important to people are pretty extreme. And so it's like you've got to find your people within your culture where you fit,
Yes.
and so I might go out with Brad Pitt, my dream man, but I find out that he and I are so politically ill aligned that I can't keep dating this guy. And so I've got to go, that and then I might meet another guy and religion is so important to him, but it's not important to me. And
Yes.
and so you've just got to like, okay, that's how you learn. Okay, I don't want a super religious guy. I don't want a super political guy. Here's a guy, that is not a workaholic. And that's the other thing is a lot of successful men are workaholics. Women too. Do you want to be married to a workaholic? You need to know about these things. So like if you get around his family and you hate his family, well, guess what? They're going to be your family if you
Yeah.
marry him.
Yeah.
This is going to present, huge obstacles. So there's so many aspects of it that you need to sample. I'll sample your family. I'll
Mm.
sample seeing how you are when you're sick. I'll
Yeah.
sample what your work ethic is, what your money ethic is, what your rituals on holidays are, what your relationship with your mother is.
Yes. Exactly. And how prominent is she going to be in our relationship as well? These type of things that need to be
That's
ironed out.
it. Do you
So
have good boundaries with your biological family? Is a big, big issue.
yeah, exactly. And it's knowing that. And that's so empowering when you know what you are sampling. I love that word sampling. When you know what you are sampling, then you can get that whole picture. You can get that overview as to how aligned am I with this person? And how compatible am I? We had a chat before we are having this conversation here, and we spoke about the word egomaniac.
Mhm.
I would love for you to explain what that means and how that shows up for us and in our relationships, perhaps.
Well, I'm a recovering egomaniac myself, and part of my life journey was on the front end of my life. Like I'm kind of infamous or famous for being the marriage therapist that's been married 4 times. Okay, I've been married, divorced 3 times, and I would say that the egomaniac Becky is the reason I was divorced 3 times. Like I was still in my egomania back then. And then after my third marriage, I took 10 years off, went to grad school, went to therapy workshops all over the nation and tried to learn and grow, and did not have a boyfriend for 10 years and really did some soul searching. And one of the questions I asked myself, it was like, what is it I really just don't like about myself, But what I realized was that I was shallow, had a shallowness in my personality that was driven by egomania. And I understand that I developed the egomania in my family system growing up. My parents conditioned us to be drawn to prominent, successful, big money, prominent people.
Yes.
And they didn't just say, we in the Whetstone family only hang around prominent, successful people. But what would happen is if you brought someone over that wasn't prominent, they'd go, why did you bring them over? What, And then when you brought somebody who was from like a top family in town, let's go get you some new pajamas, Becky, before she spends the night with you. Let's roll out the red carpet. So it's kind of like the messages they sent to us were, we approve of this certain kind of people. So I feel like I was trained like a dog to bring home, go out and find the best prominent, powerful, successful men I could and bring them home like a quarry and impress my family and get them to give me a standing ovation. Look at Becky's husband, like, what, my God, what an amazing, successful man. And the problem is when you're drawn to those kind of flashy people, a lot of them are narcissists in that world. So I was drawn to the egomaniac man who was shallow, and then I was shallow in wanting to hook my caboose to him. And although I did love those men, I really did, they could not have a healthy relationship with anyone, and I was in it for the wrong reasons. So I got my prominence through men, but later on I got prominence myself when I was working for the newspaper and everything. And then I lost it all. I lost the prominent husband. I lost my job at the newspaper. And I felt this need to claw back to prominence. It was like an animal locked out of the house. If dog has ever been locked out of the house, it's like clawing at the door to get back in the house. It's like I was clawing and trying everything I could to get back to prominence, and I couldn't make it happen as hard as I tried. And I went into a massive depression because my identity was totally wrapped up in having these powerful experiences, being around powerful people, being around money people, being around famous people. That was my identity. And when I lost it all and couldn't get it back, I had no identity and had almost a mental breakdown. And so I think I had to realize that I was going to have to find out who I was without my egomania, without that clawing, that I needed to learn to be happy with what I have and living the simple life.
Okay.
And not and prominence is fine, but I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil to get it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I literally, especially in that third marriage, sold my soul to the devil I knew this man was not a great emotionally stable person, but he had by far the most powerful and prominent job of any man I'd ever met. He was a United States congressman, the
Okay.
kind that's in Washington, D.C.,
Mm.
that the president calls on the phone. And I knew if I married him, I'd be going to the White House. I knew I'd be talking to Nancy Pelosi. I knew I'd be having unbelievable experiences. And I did. I did. But he was cruel and abusive and cheated on me, treated me and my kids like a dog. And and then he dumped me. He literally just left me for another woman. And that's when I like crashed and burned, because when the congressman leaves you, believe me, all your friends stay with the congressman. And even ones who you knew way before go with the congressman. So I literally at the end had no friends, no job, no prominence. My life was like a ghost town. And that's when I realized, like, what the hell have you been doing, Becky? Because you're a good person, you're a decent person. And I realized that I had done it to myself by putting myself in kind of unsafe positions so I could have access to this shiny thing over here. So I had to learn to live without the shiny thing and to just be happy with my life, whatever it is, But like, I love my job. Like we were talking, I'm passionate about this. This is enough. What I'm doing now is enough,
Yeah.
but now I don't need to be in the spotlight.
Mm.
I mean, if it comes, that's great. But if it doesn't, I'm great also, you know. So
That is such a powerful share, and thank you for being so vulnerable because that will connect with a lot of people. And the way that you have actually, some of the key words that were jumping out to me there was, of course, the word egomaniac, but that sense of prominence and where we're getting that prominence from, and then taking it back to simplicity. So, what does a simple life look like for you? Because I think what you've learned there and some of your simplicity will help people in terms of what could be simplified for them too.
well, I think that part of egomania is getting your identity through things external to yourself.
Mm.
Whether it's beauty, I mean, I have known women that their whole identity is wrapped up in how they look,
Yeah,
or wrapped up in what kind of purse they have, or
yeah,
wrapped up in, and so when you're putting all your eggs in a successful man basket, or what kind of car you drive, or how much money you have, or success, achievement, then if you lose that thing, you will have nothing, and
yes,
your self-esteem will be on the ground. This is why many men jumped out of windows in 1929 in America when the stock market crashed, because their whole identity was wrapped up in being a rich man, and they lost everything, and then they didn't have a self, and they didn't want to live. And so I think that when you're leading the simple life, you're finding the joy from within yourself, the self-esteem within yourself, and then you get to decide what's enough for me today to have a good and wonderful day. And for me, it's my life with my husband.
yeah,
It's the fun that I have, and the relationships I have with my clients, and helping people in marriage, and writing is so fulfilling for me. And talking to people like you, it's I feel like I'm making a difference in the world, but my well-being doesn't depend on that.
yeah,
But that helps me enjoy life more. And so it's just appreciating what I have from within, but my life doesn't depend on those things. My happiness doesn't depend on those things. So
Yeah,
the people like this experience right now, and my clients who I love
mm,
are are like the toppings on my life ice cream.
I love that. I'm tasting that taste of life that you spoke about before. I'm
Oh
really
yeah.
tasting that. I mean, it's beautiful, and thank you for that share because it's just bringing it back to our inner happiness, and you brought that back to your that internal state rather than the externals that can happen. You shared so wonderfully and so openly with us about your relationship experiences, your learnings. So, a question that I love to ask my guests like, as we draw to a close of the conversation is what's your personal definition of love when it comes to the romantic side of love? What does love mean to you?
Oh, Teresa, I've thought about this so much, and I used to not know what it is, but I do think I know what it is now. I think love is a verb.
Mm,
It's an action word. I don't think it's a feeling. I think it's a deliberate action toward another person that shows them that you care about them and their well-being. And like I feel very strongly that like you can't sit across from the room and love somebody. You
mm,
have to do a loving act for them. And that's like, that goes right along with the five love languages, which is a very famous book that most of us are aware of. And everything in the five love language is a verb,
it is.
an act.
Yeah.
And so it's touching, it's affirming, it's appreciating, it's spending time and focus, it's doing things for them and being thoughtful and giving toward them. And that is love to me, is, just acting in a way that shows another person that they're important to you.
Oh, that landed so beautifully. I can feel my heart just palpitating just when you were speaking about that, like it being an action for what we
Absolutely.
do. And that's going to resonate with so many people there. So thank you for sharing it. I'm always so thrilled to hear everybody's different definitions of love because it's so powerful. And you spent some time thinking about that. So thank you for sharing with
Thanks
the
for
world.
asking me
Thank
that.
you. So we're going to bring this conversation to a close. And it's been such an insightful conversation. I know that the listeners have gained so much from what you have shared there and so much to ponder on. So thank you so much for this conversation, Becky. What I do like to do as a parting tradition on my show is to ask my very special guests like yourself to leave one key takeaway to help the listeners along their journey of love, well-being, and relationships. What would you like to share?
I think the my number one advice is not to sell yourself short. Any of you guys out there that are thinking you're not good enough, you don't measure up, that's just a lie that you're telling yourself. I'm telling you that you're already good enough. You're already enough, okay? And now go out and taste life and 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 keep adding the things in your life that you enjoy and remove the things that you don't enjoy and start living authentically and true to yourself. Manage your life like a business. Keep yourself in the black. Don't do things that you really, really, really don't want to do. I think, create a life for yourself that you really enjoy, and you have the ability to do that. So that's my best advice. Is a lot of people, I think, feel they're obligated to do this or I have to do that.
Yeah.
No, no, like set yourself up for yourself. Like
Mm,
your happiness and well-being is the most important thing you can do for yourself and your relationships.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that last tip that you gave there. Becky, where are you hanging out? Where can people find you, follow you? Please share where you are.
I hope I'll get to hear from some of your listeners. Find me at marriagecrisismanager.com. I have a blog on the Medium platform. Look for Dr. Becky or Becky Whetstone. And that's pretty much it. My blog and my website. And then, of course, my book is I Think I Won Out, What to Do When One of You Wants to End Your Marriage. And that's available at all online booksellers. So, yeah. And reach out to me.
Absolutely. I'm going to drop all of Becky's details into the show notes. So there's no excuse for you to say you don't know where she is, because it's going to be there and it's evergreen. It's not going anywhere at all. So right. Once again, Becky, thank you for this nourishing, empowering conversation. And for everybody who has listened to this wonderful episode, I want to thank you for your time, for your attention, and for your energy. And until the next episode, take great care of yourself and others too.